Hello, you're watching Shalom World News. I'm Rory McLennan coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. According to a 2023 report on violations to the rights of Christians in Iran, published by London-based NGO Article 18, along with its partners Open Doors International, Christian Solidarity Worldwide and Middle East Concern, Christians and other religious minorities in Iran continue to be systematically deprived of their right to freely practice their religion. The new report from the four non-profit organisations claims that 2022 was another year in which Iranian Christians continued to experience harassment, arrests and imprisonment for practicing their faith. Their findings show that 134 Christians were detained for reasons linked to their faith, more than double the number detained in 2021. The number of Christians jailed increased significantly, from 34 in 2021 to 61 last year. The presidential election in Nigeria over the weekend is starting to yield preliminary results. Election results from 25 of the country's 36 states indicate that the candidate of the ruling party is ahead, but opposition parties have abandoned the vote counting process due to suspicions of fraud. Electoral Commission results on Tuesday indicate that 70-year-old Bola Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress Party is ahead, with about 36% of votes counted. Atiku Abubakar of the main opposition People's Democratic Party trails close behind. Eyes, however, are on Peter Obi of the Labour Party, who has won the most votes in the key state of Lagos. The final tally is expected within 5 days. On Monday, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres once again added his voice to international condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The UN chief stressed that Russia's decision to go to war against its neighbour on the 24th of February last year had unleashed widespread death, destruction and displacement. During the opening of the 52nd session of the Geneva-based Human Rights Council, the President of the UN General Assembly, Shaba Kuroshi, also issued a stark warning that Russia's actions had effectively paralysed the Security Council in New York, the primary international forum tasked with maintaining peace and security. On March the 20th, the Independent International Commission of Investigation on Ukraine will provide an update to the 47 member states of the Human Rights Council. On Friday, the pro-life advocacy group Pro-Life San Francisco tweeted that two of its members had been illegally detained for giving out pamphlets at a public place outside Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital. The hospital's biomedical research is a frequent target of the pro-life advocacy organization's activism, with Pro-Life San Francisco asserting that the hospital is collaborating with the University of California at San Francisco in aborting children up to 6 months old. The arrested individuals were named as Anastasia Rogers and Tim Clement. Pro-Life San Francisco said the arrests were based on false charges and were a blatant violation of activists' right to speak freely in public. Pro-life activists accuse the hospital of using aborted babies' remains in fetal tissue research. The International Court of Justice has ordered Azerbaijan to lift the blockade at the Lachin corridor between Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia. The blockade has prevented many Armenians from getting access to food, medication and other necessities. The International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination requires Azerbaijan to take all reasonable steps to ensure the unhindered movement of people, vehicles and cargo in both directions along the Lachin corridor. The blockade has been in place for more than 2 months, with Azerbaijani protesters blocking the only road into the landlocked territory. The House panel investigating China's threat to the United States began its work this week by hearing testimony about the Chinese Communist Party's treatment of dissidents and pro-democracy activists. The stories of those who escaped the regime's crackdowns were meant to establish the Chinese Communist Party as not merely an economic, technological and military threat, but also a threat to human rights. The bipartisan panel led by Chair Mike Gallagher and Raja Krishnamurti plans to make policy recommendations aimed at protecting US economic and tech interests. The Kenyan Supreme Court's decision to allow the registration of LGBT non-governmental organisations has deeply concerned the country's Christian professionals. In a statement, the Kenya Christian Professionals Forum said that the recent judgment opens the way to the gradual dismantling of legal, moral and cultural prohibitions against homosexual behaviour. 3 judges on the 5-judge bench argued that despite homosexuality being illegal in Kenya, they have a right of association. The Kenyan Penal Code stipulates a 14-year jail term for anyone found guilty of engaging in homosexual behaviour. The February the 24th Supreme Court ruling follows a 10-year legal battle that started when the National Gay and Lesbian Human Rights Commission challenged the head of Kenya's NGO board for his refusal to permit the registration of an association under a name containing the words gay or lesbian. Over 1,000 anti-abortion advocates flooded downtown Annapolis in the US state of Maryland on Monday evening to rally against legislation that aims to broaden access to abortion. Anti-abortion advocates stood in the chilly February rain for the 44th annual Maryland March for Life rally. It was also the first in Annapolis since the US Supreme Court struck down the legal precedent set by the landmark Roe v. Wade case on June 24, 2022, leaving states to determine their policies regarding abortion. An international conference will be held in Rome in May to demonstrate the worth of the encyclical Humani Vitae as a defender of human dignity. The conference, entitled Humani Vitae, the boldness of an encyclical on sexuality and procreation, is being organised by the Jérôme Lejeune International Chair in Bioethics, and it will be held on May the 19th and 20th at the Augustinianum Institute in the Italian capital. The gathering aims to reflect on the anthropological and ethical nature, as well as the significance of the letter Pope St. Paul VI wrote in 1968. The conference aims to highlight the encyclical's continued importance as a champion of human life's dignity, as well as the beauty of sexuality and human procreation. An order from the President Biden administration requiring colleges to permit male students to live in women-only dorms or use the girls' showers is being challenged by a Christian institution in Missouri in the US Supreme Court. On Monday, College of the Ozarks submitted a petition seeking the Supreme Court to overturn a US Department of Housing and Urban Development order requiring the academic institution to allow people of the opposite sex to live in gender-specific campus dorms. Alliance Defending Freedom's Senior Counsel and Vice President of Appellate Advocacy John Bursch said in a statement that the College of the Ozarks should be free to follow the religious tradition on which it was founded. According to information provided by the National Archives Museum in Washington, D.C., the security officer who instructed a group of students to cover up their pro-life clothing and accessories was a private contractor who has now been removed from employment with the museum. Pro-lifers claim that security guards instructed them to remove or conceal their hats, buttons and other clothing, bearing the slogans "Life is a human right" and "Life always wins," while they were at the museum on the morning of the March for Life on the 20th of January. Earlier this month, a group of Republican senators led by Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas penned a letter to the National Archives and Records Administration's archivist requesting information about any disciplinary action taken and whether the museum has a policy prohibiting pro-life attire. Acting archivist Deborah Steidel-Wall responded to the senator's letter on the 22nd of February, explaining that the museum has no such policy in place. Amid an attempt by the US Senate to revive the Equal Rights Amendment, which failed in 1982, the Catholic bishops of the United States have urged senators to vote down the proposal, citing possible threats to religious freedom, as well as a likelihood that the amendment would be used to strike down pro-life laws and promote public funding for abortion. In a February the 27th letter, the bishops warned about several far-reaching consequences that would arise from the amendment and its negative impacts on religious freedom. The bishops strongly urged the Senate to oppose it and any resolution attempting to declare it ratified. The Pontifical Foundation Aid to the Church in Need will organise the 5th edition of its event, the Night of the Witnesses, which highlights the religious persecution suffered by the Catholic Church around the world. This is due to take place in 4 Mexican cities. The event will take place in Querétaro, León, Aguascalientes and Mexico City from March the 7th to the 10th. The Night of the Witnesses is a prayer vigil that features live testimony of Christians who are experiencing poverty and persecution in various parts of the world. Tributes will also be paid to Christians who have sacrificed their lives for the faith. They include Father Ira Luis Garcia Escobar, killed in Venezuela by bandits who wanted to steal his lorry, and Catholic nun and doctor Marie-Sylvie Kavuki, who was burned alive by Muslim terrorists who set fire to the hospital where she worked in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again tomorrow for more. In the meantime, you can also visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.